The Galactic War had entered its 15th year. Humanity, struggling to reclaim lost planets and populations, faced greater danger than ever before. Their enemies, the Zorak, possessed superior technology and outmaneuvered humanity at every turn with ruthless strategies. Earth could not withstand another major assault. In desperation, humans developed one of the greatest inventions in their history, invisibility technology. This was not just a tactical advantage, it was a new way to wield fear as a weapon against an advanced civilization like the Zorak. Spacecraft, soldiers, and even small ammunition could now become completely invisible with this technology. They could move silently through the depths of space and strike at their enemy when least expected. Captain Riker took a deep breath as he walked across the bridge of his ship, which was equipped with the newly developed Sombra-class invisibility technology. The ship's name, Sombra, meaning shadow, perfectly reflected the nature of their mission. His crew was composed of trained and battle-hardened soldiers, yet even with the advantage of invisibility, they knew danger was always near. Silently, they blended into the vastness of space, with only their mission in mind, a mission that could alter humanity's fate. Riker sat in the command chair at the center of the bridge and looked at the screen. "What's our status, Lieutenant Farrow?" he asked, his voice calm and steady. "Radar systems are clear, Captain. Invisibility is active, and all systems are functioning normally," Lieutenant Farrow replied, swiftly reviewing the data on his terminal. The focus on his face reassured the crew. "No signs of enemy ships." "Good. Continue quietly." "Our priority is not being detected," Riker said. "We need to strike at the right moment. There's no room for mistakes." In the endless darkness of space, the crew of the Sombra barely breathed. In a war where the Zorak held dominance, this technology had become their last hope. The enemy forces, with their scattered outposts and massive warships, had maintained relentless pressure on humanity. But the invisibility technology had become a weapon the Zorak didn't know about and weren't prepared to counter. "Captain, we're approaching the Zorak outpost," said Navigator Mira. Her hands moved delicately over the control panel, her face tense. 12 parsecs away. No visible defenses. "They'll notice when it's too late," Riker muttered, his eyes fixed on the screen. The moment the enemy became aware of them could either bring victory or disaster for humanity. The success of the Sombra hinged on whether they could pull off a precise preemptive strike. The Zorak had always been one step ahead. Humanity's inexperience and weaknesses in space warfare had worked to their enemy's advantage. But now, with invisibility technology, the Zorak's perfect radar and tracking systems were rendered useless. The war would now be fought in the shadows. "No Zorak ships detected, Captain," Farrow said, pausing before adding, "but this silence makes me uneasy." Riker nodded slowly. "This is our best chance to silently advance and strike their outpost. Keep moving. Stay quiet, stay invisible. Failure is not an option." The crew quietly obeyed Riker's order. Under the veil of invisibility, the ship glided silently through the dark void of space. "Navigator Mira, check our exact position," Riker commanded. "How far are we from the enemy outpost?" Mira quickly checked the data stream. "Just a few minutes, Captain. We're in position." As the Sombra-class invisible ship neared the Zorak outpost, even the crew's breathing became quieter. Riker stood motionless on the bridge. Though their chances of being detected were slim thanks to the technology, one mistake or misstep could endanger the entire operation. The enemy's radar couldn't detect them, but it was impossible to predict when the Zorak might be caught by surprise. "Sergeant Kane, is your team ready?" Riker asked, connecting to the ship's internal communication system. "We're ready, Captain," Kane replied, his voice firm, disciplined, and confident. His team was made up of elite soldiers, trained for years. "We'll proceed as planned." Sergeant Kane was one of the key figures in the operation. Leading a special forces unit in the human army, Kane was always aware of the dangers. Moving undetected right under the enemy's nose was a skill every soldier needed to master. "Inform me when your team is in position," Riker said. Kane glanced at his soldiers. Each was fully equipped, their invisibility suits activated, and weapons at the ready. They silently nodded to one another, completing their preparations for the attack. The Zorak outpost was located in a remote corner of the galaxy, deep in space, far from human territories. This outpost served as a tactical hub for the Zorak, and an attack here could deliver a significant blow to their galactic dominance. Kane gathered his crew. "We are approaching our target silently. We won't make a single mistake. No one will be detected. If we encounter any enemy defenses, neutralize them immediately. This operation must be quick and clean," he said. The Sombra continued its approach. The massive Zorak outpost, with its gray metallic structures and towers, stood silently. The outpost's defenses were active, but they were incapable of detecting the invisible ship. "We're approaching the landing zone," Navigator Mira said, quickly checking the data on the screen. "Once we're close enough to the main terminal, we'll initiate the operation." Riker nodded. "You've all trained for this moment. This will be a turning point for humanity. Once we reach our target, we strike without delay." The tension inside the Sombra grew. The soldiers anxiously awaited the moment they would land on the outpost, their nerves on edge. The Zorak had no way of knowing about the attack, but if they detected any anomaly, they could respond before it was too late. "Sombra is ready for landing," Mira said, her voice tinged with excitement. Kane and his team were lined up in the ship's cargo hold. Each soldier understood the delicate nature of the mission. "Begin now," Riker ordered. "This attack must be silent and swift." Kane's team silently disembarked onto the outpost's landing platform. Every step they took was filled with the vision of destroying Zorak outposts. Their mission was to infiltrate the outpost's main computer and sabotage the Zorak's war strategies. This wasn't just a military operation, it was a move that would disrupt the enemy's entire plan. When Kane and his team reached the outpost's entrance, he signaled to his soldiers. They swiftly disabled the outpost's security systems. The Zorak were still unaware. Everything remained silent as they moved inside. "We're in," Kane whispered into his mic, accessing the system now. They advanced quietly into the massive control room of the outpost. The Zorak guards were oblivious to the danger surrounding them. Kane and his team moved past them without making a sound. "We've reached the target," Kane reported as he connected to the computer terminal. One of the soldiers quickly hacked into the Zorak defense systems. "Data is being copied. The enemy is unaware," the technician soldier said. Everything was going according to plan. But the ease of the mission heightened Kane's sense of unease. He remained alert, knowing things could go wrong at any moment. And Kane's instincts proved right. Suddenly, the outpost's alarms began to blare. Something had detected them. "Things are going wrong," Kane whispered into his mic, "the enemy has detected us. Return to Sombra." Riker ordered, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. He knew things were quickly going south. Somehow, the Zorak had realized the danger. The battle was about to begin. As the massive structure of the Zorak outpost filled with the echoes of blaring sirens, Riker kept his eyes fixed on the screen, closely monitoring the situation. Everything had been going according to plan, but somehow, the enemy had detected them, completely changing the dynamics. Their invisibility technology had bypassed the Zorak's radar, but now the alarms were sounding. This wasn't just an attack, it was the beginning of a new war. "Kane, what's the situation?" Riker asked, maintaining his calm demeanor. Kane, running quickly through the outpost, responded into his mic, "We managed to breach the system, but the enemy has noticed us. Zorak forces are moving in fast. We're retreating, but there are too many of them. Riker took a deep breath, thinking quickly without taking his eyes off the screen. Maintain your invisibility cloak. Move quietly. Sombra will pick you up, he instructed. Invisibility technology still gave them an advantage, but with the Zorak now aware of their presence, things had become much more complicated. Riker knew how quickly the enemy could react on the battlefield. The Zorak were a cold, calculating opponent, quick to find weaknesses and exploit them. As the alarms blared throughout the ship, the Sombra crew sprang into action. The ship's technicians and engineers worked at full capacity to keep the invisibility system operational. Navigator Mira scanned her screens, rapidly assessing the situation. Enemy warships are approaching, Mira reported. The Zorak are preparing to attack. Riker remained calm and issued his orders. Move into battle positions. We'll respond. As long as they can't detect us, they can't harm us. Kane's team moved like invisible shadows through the narrow corridors inside the outpost. Zorak soldiers patrolled chaotically, unaware of their presence. But Kane's face was tight with tension. It felt as though the enemy had somehow realized they were invisible, as they began firing randomly. If we can't get out of here, we'll have to blow up the outpost, Kane told his soldiers. Everything is set. If the retreat fails, we'll destroy all the data we've gathered. The team moved swiftly, trying to reach Sombra's landing platform. But it was clear the Zorak had reinforced their positions. Zorak soldiers stood at every corner, alert to the unseen threat, and some were shielded behind barriers. Lieutenant, more Zorak troops are approaching, Kane reported, trying to alert the bridge. Riker realized the situation was deteriorating. Kane, you need to get back to the ship as soon as possible. The Zorak may have developed something to counter our technology. We must act fast. Meanwhile, the Zorak warships were closing in on Sombra's position. The ship was still invisible to their radar, but the Zorak could detect them at any moment. Captain, the Zorak are about to find us, Pharaoh warned, analyzing the signals on his terminal. They're strengthening their defenses and preparing for a large-scale counterattack. We'll stay invisible, but be ready to fire, Riker said. We'll strike back. As soon as Kane's team returns to the ship, we'll make a swift escape. Kane's team made one last dash and finally reached the landing platform. The Zorak sentries couldn't see them, but it was clear they sensed something. Kane gave a quick signal to his soldiers, and they silently boarded the ship under the cover of the invisibility cloak. We've made it back to Sombra, Kane said, breathless. We're ready to go. Riker took a deep breath and gave the order to move. Initiate departure. We're getting out of here. Sombra began to swiftly pull away from the Zorak outpost. The ship's engines hummed quietly as they successfully evaded the enemy's gaze. Captain, the Zorak are pursuing us, Mira said, analyzing the data on her screen. Our ship's invisible, but it won't last much longer. Riker narrowed his eyes, looking into the distance. This is just the beginning. We need to fully leverage the power of our invisibility technology. But the Zorak won't lose this war just because we're invisible. Kane turned to his team inside the ship and spoke. We did it, but this is just one step. The war ahead will be more complex and more difficult. The Zorak now know what we're capable of. The ship quickly disappeared from the Zorak's radar. As Sombra made its way back to human territory, the crew, filled with a sense of accomplishment, was also unknowingly burdened with a deep anxiety. The Zorak had detected them and responded swiftly, making it clear how the war would unfold. The invisibility technology was powerful, but it might not work forever. On the return to base, Captain Riker had already begun formulating a new attack plan. While the Zorak defense lines had weakened, the strategies they were developing against invisibility could soon become effective. As Sombra approached the largest Zorak War headquarters deep in the galaxy, the crew held their breath in silence. Though the invisibility cloak was still active, Captain Riker and his team were acutely aware that their enemies might soon find a way to overcome this technology. They had distracted the Zorak with false signals, but that trick wouldn't last forever. A real confrontation was on the horizon. "Have the phase scanners been activated?" Riker asked, without taking his eyes off the screen in front of him. Navigator Mira quickly checked the data on her console. "They haven't detected us yet, but the Zorak are conducting a phase scan. The invisibility cloak could fail at any moment." In the command center, Pharaoh was working more intensely than ever. They were constantly trying new ways to block the Zorak phase scanning system. "At this speed, we'll reach their defense systems within minutes without being detected, but we need to act, Captain," Pharaoh said. Riker nodded. "The moment we lose our invisibility, we'll attack with full force. We need to strike before the Zorak can find us." Commander Valrath watched the signals of the human ships on the massive screens. They were invisible, yes, but the phase scanning system could sense their presence with faint vibrations. The Zorak engineers, who had developed defenses in response to every human tactic, would not allow invisibility to leave them vulnerable for long. "The humans are approaching," Valrath said with a determined expression. "But this time, we'll be waiting for them." The Zorak warships went on high alert. Phase scanning systems began working more intensively. Detecting the human ships was now a matter of moments. Kane and his soldiers were preparing for battle inside Sombra. Each one of them knew that the next step would be a matter of life and death. If they succeeded in attacking the Zorak headquarters, humanity would gain a significant advantage in the galactic war. If they failed, the Zorak would be fully prepared to counter invisibility technology. "Captain, the Zorak could detect us any moment," Kane said, turning to Riker. "This might be our last chance." Riker took a deep breath. "Are we ready?" Pharaoh checked the attack systems and nodded. "All weapons are primed. The moment we lose our invisibility, we'll attack with full force." Riker thought for a moment. They had to stay one step ahead of the Zorak. "Activate the false signals," he said calmly. "We'll confuse them. Redirect their phase scanners to false targets." Kane immediately sprang into action. Sombra sent out dozens of false signals. When the Zorak detected them, they misdirected all their radars and phase scanners. Pinpointing the real target was now far more difficult. Valrath slammed his fist on the table in frustration as he noticed the phase scanning systems being scrambled. "They're here somewhere. But we can't find them." As Zorak engineers frantically tried to fix the systems, the human ship signals vanished like shadows. For a brief moment, Valrath had to acknowledge that humanity had the upper hand. But the Zorak would not retreat. "Move out," he shouted. "Order all warships to full defense. Return fire at any sign of attack." As Sombra's crew waited in tense silence, Riker, realizing the enemy was completely misled, gave the order. "Now!" The invisibility cloak was lifted, and Sombra launched a full-scale assault on the Zorak headquarters. Laser cannons and explosive rounds fired from the ship, devastating the Zorak defense lines. The Zorak warships tried to mount a counterattack when they finally saw Sombra, but the humans had successfully neutralized the phase scanners. Their enemies' targeting systems were thrown into chaos. Kane and his team moved swiftly toward the Zorak headquarters to land. Their primary objective was to destroy the data center within the headquarters. If they succeeded, they would erase all the strategic information the Zorak had gathered about humanity, gaining a significant advantage. "Kane, report on the situation," Riker said, not taking his eyes off the screen. Kane responded as he advanced rapidly through the headquarters. "We're very close to the data center. We'll be inside in a few minutes." Zorak soldiers attacked Kane and his team from every corner, but the invisibility devices were still functioning. The human soldiers continued to push forward, overcoming the Zorak defenders and moving towards the data center. When Kane finally reached the data center, he quickly placed the explosives he carried. These explosives were powerful enough to obliterate the Zorak headquarters. They would be able to destroy the Zorak technology and all strategic data in one blow. "Explosives are set, Captain. We're ready to destroy the target," Kane said to Riker. Riker knew that the turning point of the battle had arrived. "Withdraw. We're blowing up the headquarters." As Kane and his team quickly fell back, the Zorak soldiers began to notice the explosives. But it was too late. When Kane reached a safe distance, the explosives detonated. A massive explosion obliterated the Zorak headquarters and all the strategic data within. Sombras, now cloaked in invisibility once more, retreated through the depths of the galaxy, carrying the pride of a great victory. The Zorak main headquarters had been destroyed, their invisibility technology was still intact, and humanity had gained a significant advantage in the galactic war. Kane returned to the bridge of the ship and looked at Riker. "We did it." Riker took a deep breath and looked into the distance. "This is just one battle. But we've shown the Zorak that humanity will not be easily defeated." As Sombra advanced through the shadows of the galaxy, its crew was ready for the next tough challenge. The war was not over, but humanity had now become the unseen hero of this conflict. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye, see you in the next story.